All right, I'm going to kick us off. Welcome those of you who've joined us today. My name is Claire Lineweber. I'm the Executive Director of the SCI Center for Innovative Thinking at Yale. We're delighted today to kick off a new series we're starting called The Innovator Spotlight with Joe Tsai. So today we have with us one of our student teams, Cambium Carbon. Before we begin, I would like to quickly read Yale University's land acknowledgement. Yale University acknowledges that Indigenous peoples and nations, including the Mohegan, Mashantucket Pequot, Eastern Pequot, Schaghticoke, Golden Hill Paugussett, Niantic, and the Quinnipiac and other Algonquin-speaking peoples, have stewarded through generations the lands and waterways of what is now the state of Connecticut. We honor and respect the enduring relationship that exists between these peoples and nations and this land. So our Innovator Spotlight series is to highlight the journeys along innovation pathways of recent Yale alumni. We want to showcase the myriad ways that alumni are thinking innovatively and solving problems in the world. Throughout the conversation, you should feel free to drop questions in the Q&A box or chat box. But now I'd like to kick it off. We have with us today Ben Christensen and Marissa Repka of Cambium Carbon. They're recent graduates of the Yale School of the Environment and co-founders of the company. Cambium Carbon is an early stage social enterprise building a platform to scale circular economies. The company has focused its early development on urban wood utilization as a revenue engine for new tree planting. And with that, I'm going to mute myself and hand it off to Joseph Tsai, who is going to interview Ben and Marissa today.
Thank you, Claire. It's my pleasure and honor to be able to do this session with Ben and Marissa. It's so great for me to be back in New Haven. I'm sitting in the offices at the Tri-City building, and I just feel so thrilled to be back at Yale. So I'll just jump in, Ben and Marissa. First, very nice to meet you guys. Even though this is on a virtual call, but I hope to see you in person at some point. I understand that you guys were classmates at the Yale School of Environment, and you started the company or the idea back in 2019 while you're still students, and now you've graduated and you're still continuing to do this. Can you just tell us why this idea of I guess a urban recycling of trees, and how did you get into this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I can kick us off, and thank you all for being here. Really excited to be on. So we have been really focused on addressing climate change, and my whole career has been focused on addressing climate change at scale, and also making sure that we do that in a way that really puts people first. And so focusing on circular economies in US cities offers this amazing opportunity where we can create more resilient climate-centric economies that also create lots and lots of jobs. And so we realized that was a really big opportunity. I started really looking at that problem during my summer in between my 2 years at the Yale School of the Environment, took that idea and then brought it into some initial accelerators at Tri-City, which was really awesome. Marissa then jumped on board. We were really close friends, soccer teammates on the Yale School of the Environment team, which was a great bonding experience for us. And we brought that on with our third co-founder, Theo, and really started diving in from there. So we're focused on building and being a platform that can enable those circular economies. So what does that actually mean, right? So when we think about why waste happens in cities, there's sort of three core players. So there's the waste source, there's folks who can process it and turn it into higher value, and then there's the market that can take that and turn it into a profit and can turn that into a good. So we're focused on being the platform that can help connect those often fragmented stakeholders, and we're really focused first on urban wood. So there's a huge opportunity there, and I'm sure we'll dive into it more, but being the platform that facilitates that connection between the suppliers and the buyers is what we're really building.
And so, I know that you started with a very big problem, which is climate change and trying to do something good for the environment. And you talk about the circular economy, but why in particular wood or trees and wood as opposed to something else?
Sure.
Sure. I think we were looking at that, seeing that 36 million trees fall in cities each year, and that typically costs up to $600 million for cities to dispose of that wood waste stream. At the same time, you're looking at declining canopy covers nationally and this kind of battle to get more trees in the ground. But the economic incentives are not in favor of trees in cities. They cost a lot to plant and to maintain, and then at their end of life, they cost a lot to dispose of. And so we were really looking to see if we could leverage some of these market forces and really find a valuable product to be derived from that waste stream that could then reinvest in new planting and maintenance. So I think for us, we saw this opportunity to solve two problems at once, to get rid of a waste problem and also create a revenue engine for tree planting.
The other two things I would add on that is we also have seen a really strong national movement starting to scale and create the enabling conditions around utilizing urban wood at scale. And we're right at this tipping point where there's national investment. There's lots of amazing local suppliers who are helping to grow this. And it's a really great time to be a platform that can connect that market. 20 years ago, that really didn't exist. And now is a time where we can really leverage that growing momentum and help it scale and get to the next level. And I think the other thing that we think about a lot as a business is, ultimately we want to expand into other materials and grow and really be comprehensive there. But picking one material is really strategic. It allows us to grow and scale and build the type of internal capacity that we need. It allows us to really get our feet underneath us as a business with revenue, with growth, and with scale. And it's a big enough problem that we can go really, really far with it. But it's also niche enough that we can also dominate that market. So that's how we thought about it and why we really zoomed in there.
That's really interesting. I think one of the big hallmarks of entrepreneurialism is to identify problems and quantify them and solve the problems. I mean, 36 million trees that are lost. And did you say, Marissa, that costs $600 million for cities to clean things up? I mean, that's a huge problem.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we see that also in cities. We did an in-depth technical assessment with the city of New York, and on a given year, you're looking at 12,000 trees that are being removed, managed just by New York City Parks on public land. And that's in the absence of a major storm event like Isaias or Sandy. And so it's a really significant cost burden as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I've got a ton of questions about the effort that, this company that you created. But before we get into the details, I'm just curious. You call the company cambium carbon. I mean, I kind of had to look up the word cambium. It's the material between the bark and the wood. Why cambium?
Yeah, it's a great question. So cambium really does two things in trees. It grows outwardly. So if you think about a tree ring, cambium is the growth layer that expands outward. So that's one of our big goals, is to help really grow this movement, to grow the connection between this waste and the market. And the other thing that cambium really does is it facilitates nutrient and water exchange between the leaves and the roots. And so it connects across different scales. And that's what we're really trying to do as well. In any given week, we work with a lot of different stakeholders. Marissa will be on with a lead of the Parks and Rec in a large city, and I'll be talking to a venture capitalist in San Francisco, and another one of our teammates will be on the ground with an urban wood product shop. All of those are really different stakeholders with different viewpoints, with different needs, and being part of Cambium and part of our ethic is really doing a good job of prioritizing people first and connecting across those different scales. So that's why we chose it. We're all about growing the movement and about connecting.
Okay, that's great. So I'd like to just get into some of the basics of how your company works. Are you right now in a number of cities that you work with the city governments, and how exactly do you try to I guess you're sort of recycling the fallen trees, and how does that work? And is there a unit economics involved in that activity?
Yeah, so high level cities really allow a core market entry point. So Marissa will dive in and talk a little bit more about how that actually works from a business model and scaling side. They're key in terms of enabling this wood products to get connected to the market. And if we're the platform that really allows this resource to get connected, the more of it that we can have within that market connection, the more we are going to succeed and the more impact we are going to have. So cities are a really key part of that, and they're enabling part of our business model. So Marissa, you want to take in and dive in there?
Yeah, I mean, I think to kind of answer that question around how we work in communities, I think there's a couple of different prongs. There's working directly with city governments. So that's making the high level business case around urban wood utilization, and doing that economic analysis and understanding what's the opportunity for social, financial, and environmental impact. I think the other ways that we operate are with local businesses. So really looking to understand who are the businesses that are handling some small share of this urban wood waste stream right now, and how do we help grow those businesses? And then it's also working with community nonprofit partners. So the tree planting organizations, the folks that are really focused on either workforce development or economic development locally. So I would say, in terms of how our business operates, we're set up as a public benefit corporation. So we are a for-profit entity with the idea that we really need to be self-sustaining and sustainable in all senses of the word, but really looking to connect both the private sector to the public sector. So working closely with cities on those longer term projects, but also looking to grow the business network that exists in the private sector as well.
The last thing I would add about that is, when you think about the core of our business model, it's really a two-sided marketplace. So it's connecting local suppliers to large scale buyers, and cities forms sort of the third pillar of our business model, which is creating those enabling conditions. So working with those cities also allows us to have great relationships with them. You look at like an Uber and Airbnb, oftentimes they really struggle to have strong relationships with cities. Our cities love us. We have great relationships. We're saving them money. We're creating jobs. We're reinvesting in community impact. That's really deeply embedded in our model. And that also provides us, defensibility and a moat as we scale as a company, and also is core in terms of what we value and what we really believe in, which is, building that impact in a community-centric way.
And so you have to excuse me, I'm going to get into some detailed questions, because part of being an entrepreneur is not just having a vision, but also getting into the get things done mode. So tell us, with fallen trees in the city, do you actually hire people to bring those the wood to the manufacturers, and how does that physically happen?
Sure. Well, typically there would be arborists or tree care companies that would be removing those trees, whether that was on a work order from a city government or a utility company that's managing power lines, or on the private side, if a tree falls in front of your house, you're going to call someone to remove that material. And so they're typically disposing of that in various fashions. So whether that's hauling it to landfill, whether that's chipping it, seeing if there's any sort of organic recycler locally that might make a really low grade product, like a mulch or a soil amendment out of it. And so really it's about connecting those businesses that are handling the waste management and the tree removal portion to a new outlet. So connecting them with millers and sawyers who can take that material. So a lot of those connections are just diverting the disposal pathway. So someone's already coming in with that equipment and removing the logs, but then giving them another opportunity to dispose of that material free of cost, which is another big thing for us, is that if you can drop a log at a sawmill for free and get rid of several tons of material and not pay what is on average a $67 per ton disposal cost to landfill, that's a win on the part of the tree care company.
So who pays for that cost though? Is it the furniture manufacturers, the millwork people that will actually pay for the wood? And that's how you can make the disposal free?
So the core piece there, and I think really just simplifying it. So again, going back to those three steps, there's the waste producer that then has this waste and they need to get rid of it. So their options are to either dispose it or take it to a processor. when the processor offers a cheaper alternative, they take it there, and oftentimes they're willing to drop that there for free. So that's one of the core unit economic advantages we have. Right now, getting that waste to processor is not the constraint within the market or within the system. The constraint is really getting those materials to the market at scale. And so we're focused on removing that barrier first by bringing in these large recurring orders that we can funnel into our supply network. So we have about 130 suppliers across the country who are able of fulfilling these types of projects. We work with them and we can aggregate a number of different suppliers for a large order. So let's say we get a large furniture order, we can source from a number of different suppliers. And what does that allow those suppliers to do? Well, those orders are recurring, which means that they can then say, hey, we can start taking in more of this waste stream. So, we spent a ton of time like really focused on this problem and realized that's really the constraint in the market first. As we move forward, down the road, we are also going to have to help facilitate more of how do we get waste into the actual processor's hands. And part of what we're building on our software platform is that chain of custody so that we know across all of that, where exactly did it came from? We can communicate that value really clearly and we can track the carbon impact there as well.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the software platform. I think, you're in the innovation business and you have a very big idea, a very big problem that you want to solve with basically a circular economy idea. So that in itself is innovation, but operationally, there's also lots of room to innovate. So I want to hear about the software platform and how do you match suppliers and users in a better way?
For sure. So we have a software platform called Trace, which is really solving sort of two core problems. And so just zooming out, when you think existentially about the market conditions that we're dealing with, when you think about a normal two-sided marketplace, like an Amazon or an Etsy, there's lots of vendors who can go on and are already ready to go and sell their products on those platforms. For us, we have to really help our supply chains grow and scale. So we have a lot of folks who are ready, but who are not necessarily tech enabled and are not running and benefiting from the efficiencies of those technologies that can help them sell at scale. So before we get into a sort of a true marketplace scenario where it's efficient and those transactions are facilitated on the software platform, we have to help tech enable and get just the goods tracked initially. So the way that works is we have an inventory management software. So that allows our millers to track their wood, to know what trees it came from, to be able to do core business analytics around what is the quantity, what is the volume, and then to also do point of sale. So through their own websites, and then ultimately through a bigger marketplace as well. And so that is, something that is key for us right now. We've got 28 shops across the country who are currently using it. We're rapidly expanding that number and focused on growth there. So we're seeing a lot of traction, and there's lots of other features that we will integrate into that platform. Again, that chain of custody, as well as a lot of other business efficiency processes that we're working on. But that's really what it does right now. It manages inventory really well, and it allows you to get that inventory online, both for your own analytics and business optimization, and then also to sell it more efficiently.
Do you think that's your secret sauce? That's the moat that you've built up?
I think it's one part of it for sure. I mean, it would probably come as no surprise that urban forestry is not a deeply tech-enabled industry, and that when we look at, I just lost my lights. When we look at millers and sawyers and woodworkers, they're craftspeople that love finishing a wood product. They do not necessarily love sales and marketing or, having this kind of tech integration. And so making that as easy as possible for them to get more of their material off of just spreadsheets and inventories kept in their head is a key step towards accessing a huge stream of high quality products.
Okay. Where do you're in a two-sided marketplace, but your constituencies are, the city, the people that process your materials, and then you have suppliers that create whatever the product could be furniture, and then the end consumers. Along this supply chain of actors, who do you think are the most difficult to work with? I mean, what are the challenges in each of those areas that you have come across?
For sure. So I think, the big thing for us is we know we have a lot of core stakeholders, and having that more holistic business approach is also what we think enables the type of businesses that we want to see in the future. Bringing in each of these different stakeholders allows us to connect and grow value in a much more community-centric way than if we just focused on the private sector. And so being able to bring in each of those is really, really key. That said, as you're saying, each represents, its own challenges. I think, on the buy side, we're dealing with slow, purchasing cycles. So we also are dealing with folks who, use and are used to traditional forest products, which is very different from using a wood waste stream. And again, there's lots of similarities and there's lots of advantages from using urban wood waste, but it's got its own different complexity. And so building out proof of concept and test cases there is really, really key. And that's something that we're growing into. On the supplier side, I think Marissa nailed it. I think getting tech enabled. They're also folks, my dad's a woodworker. I grew up in the wood shop. Like, I know what it's like to be there, and it's hard. Like, you're on the ground all day, and to do something, to zoom out and to do something that is really business centric is often a challenge. So also getting inventory on board, that's a high upfront cost. There's a high temporal cost to really getting that on board. So we're really focused on making and providing value immediately so that we can start to grow and tech enable folks. And then Marissa, you want to just talk briefly about the challenges on the city side?
Yeah, I think working closely in partnership with cities presents huge opportunity, and possibly our biggest opportunity for large scale impact. On the flip side of that coin, cities have very tight budgets and timelines and are slow moving. Bureaucracy has a lot of hurdles and red tape. And so when you look at starting a project, you're looking at year plus time cycles, and things just move at a slower pace than in the private sector. And so for us, I think that's why it's been so important to be advancing both things in tandem. So having this private sector activity where we're working just with local businesses and selling products today, and then starting these long-term projects and partnerships with cities that will pay out 5 years down the road, or that have the opportunity to unlock huge infrastructure investments, but that move much slower.
And Marissa, just to follow up, when you approach the cities, let's say you're talking to the city governments, the mayors, are they even aware of this being a problem within their own cities? How much awareness there is, and how much of a pitch do you have to make to the city governments that they have a problem?
Yeah, I think there is a lot of awareness. Often that awareness, though, is a little bit siloed to Parks and Rec or to Department of Public Works. There's, we put out this request for letters of interest over a year ago for a grant we were working on through the Nature Conservancy, and over 30 cities applied. And that was just coming to us saying, we knew this was a problem. We're looking for technical assistance in that area. So I think there's demonstrable interest there. And that was, large cities like San Francisco and Dallas and New York, and then smaller towns. And I think there's huge opportunity and interest. It's just often our role is to come in and to make the business case and that kind of internal case to other city stakeholders. So whether that's the mayor or the folks who are pulling the budget or purse strings there, we're hoping to make that really robust financial case so that the internal champions and the folks at Park and Rec have those resources, because I think they know it's a problem. They just need help articulating it.
Interesting. So let's talk about business model. How do you generate revenue?
Great question. So we, again, thinking about those sort of 3 core pillars. So in the near term, we've been leveraging and generating a lot of revenue off of that enabling city consulting. So that's the classic consulting business. That's not venture backable. Again, you don't reach massive scale in consulting, but it really, really sets us up to do market entry, to understand understand our constituency and to drive our impact in a much bigger way. So that's been a really core initial revenue driver. And again, that's enabling to set up our two-sided marketplace. The second part of that is really serving as a wood brokerage, which is what we're doing in the near term. So working with large scale buyers. So a good example of that is imagine a national scale furniture company. We're working with a few of these right now who want to start sourcing wood from cities that they're in, being able to tell that story really well. They want it to be price competitive and they want it to be really, really charismatic and impact driven. So they work with us and they're able to source from a number of different cities. We manage that supply network, we manage quality assurance, and we make it really easy for them to access this wood for the first time at scale. And so we serve as that brokerage and we take a margin on those deals. And then the final piece, and this is what we see the much longer term upside and what we're building towards, is the tech enablement. You know, the core value and what we're really providing is that supplier network and getting more and more of that wood to the market. So just zooming back, you know, of those 36 million trees that fall, the more and more of them that we can connect into a usable, durable good, the better for the planet and also the better for our business. So we're really focused on connecting those into that space. In terms of the business model on the software side, we have a subscription-based model, so classic SaaS, and then we also have a transaction-based model. So as we're doing point of sale, we take a transaction on those purchases as well. There's a number of other different spaces where we'll start to monetize across the platform that we're really excited to get to, but we're focused on winning on those first.
Just a quick clarification on the software SaaS model. Who are the users of the software?
Yeah, so the near-term users are urban wood product shops. So these are wood product shops that are already taking fallen city trees, transforming them into higher volume products, whether that's primary processing, so turning it into a slab or dimensional lumber. And then they often have secondary finishing as well. So the capability to turn it into furniture or flooring or some of those higher end product uses as well. That's our near-term focus. We're also setting up our platform to expand into other secondary wood processors. So there's a much larger market of folks who exist in cities and have, you know, sort of niche, you know, wood product shops. So you can think about a chair maker or a cabinet manufacturer, and helping tool them up to be able to access this material type as well as sort of our second tier. And then ultimately we'll expand into other material type producers as well.
Right. So you could have many parts of that supply chain downstream using the software, and they're all sort of linked up within your network.
Exactly.
Yeah. I want to talk about your social mission a little bit. Obviously, you know, any for-profit company, you know, you need to make profits in order to be sustainable. You have to sustain yourselves. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to hire people, do what you're set out to do, and scale the business. But tell us a little about how you think about this circular economy idea, where once you made profits, are you going to plow back the profits into planting more trees in the cities, or how does that work?
Yeah, so one of our commitments is that a minimum 15% of all of our profits goes back into new tree planting and maintenance in the cities that we're selling wood products from. So an example of that being in New Haven, we had done a Kickstarter last fall in which we sold cutting boards salvaged from New Haven trees. That then, those revenues supported a planting project this past spring with the Urban Resources Initiative here in New Haven, and was really focused on regenerating the canopies that those products were coming from. So for us, it's about creating that feedback cycle where you're reinvesting in canopy restoration with that reclaimed product.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the fundamental thing for us is we are trying to create a business model that does unequivocally good. And so that's one of our core values. And one of our really big beliefs is that if you're going to have scalable impact, you also have to have scalable business. But we don't want to get to scalable business at the cost of doing bad and then to start doing good things later. So we're really, really setting it up so that everything that we do is good along the way. And so part of that is using a waste stream. Like anytime you're buying a product, we're already removing, wood products from a waste stream, which is good for the planet. We're already creating new jobs, and we're focused really on local resilient economies. And then doing that reinvestment, it's great for our brand, it's great for our credibility, and we also just care about it. And that really opens doors. And we are a really big believer that helps do a lot of the other traditional marketing and customer retention pieces that, we could spend our money otherwise, or we can spend that on innovative impact. So a good example of that is, after a furniture company project with us, several months later, they get invited to one of our planting, and then they get to come out and see what their purchase actually did for their community. And talk about something that builds brand loyalty, is getting to see that and really experience it, and so doing something really good in the process. It's really, really a win-win, and we're focused on building that intrinsically throughout everything that we do.
I'm sorry to ask a question that some of the people in the audience who are CFOs may ask. When you reinvest your profits, did you say, Marissa, did you say 16% of the profits?
Minimum 15%, yeah.
15% of the profits into a tree planting project back into the city. Is that a deductible expense or a charitable contribution? How does that work?
It is, in that we then make a donation to a local nonprofit planting partner. We've been doing that so far as through partner organizations that really know their cities and the tree planting needs of those specific cities. I think in the longer term, we are looking to develop our own planting projects in a little bit more of a hands-on way. But yeah, right now that is a charitable contribution. I think the other thing to note there being that we set up as a public benefit corporation with the idea that we wanted to prioritize mission in addition to profit. And so not just being beholden to fiduciary duty to generate the highest possible profits.
Sure. I think that's, I just recently learned about the public benefit corporation regime. I guess that's what they call a B Corp, correct? Is that what it is? Yeah.
There's public benefit corporations, and then B Corps are a specific certification within that you can apply for.
Again, I don't want to get carried away with legal and financial stuff, but can you talk a little bit about the public benefit corporation concept? Because, in a normal corporation, you're part of the management team, and the directors have fiduciary obligation to their shareholders. And that's their sole constituency that they actually have legal liability towards. They may not even have liability vis-a-vis the environment in which they operate, the cities, the communities, not even their customers sometimes. So can you talk about this public benefit corporation concept? Is the legal regime different where you're not entirely beholden to your shareholders?
Yeah, so that's the core reason that we did it. And again, that's a difference that Marissa is talking about between the certification and actually being a legally incorporated public benefit corporation, is it allows us to make decisions that both prioritize, business growth as well as impact. And, I think one of the biggest things that I think is really a challenge for all of us, and particularly folks, in entrepreneurship and in leadership, to start framing, the fact that you're doing good as not really coming at the expense of also building something that is a really scalable business. And I think one of the things we've seen is we can have a huge venture trajectory, we can have really strong growth, and that's definitely part of what we are really building. And so I think that is, a core part of it. And I think it's really important that we don't frame, these things as, if you are being good and you're doing a public benefit, corporation, you're going to lose profits. And I think one of the big real things there is I am very clearly anticipating more regulatory influence in the next, 10 to 15 years that are going to drive companies to be forced on that. And so in some ways, we're setting ourselves up well ahead of those, market conditions, and putting ourselves at, a financial advantage by being on the front end of that.
Great. Just on this topic, one of the participants in the audience has given a very good explanation of the public benefit corporation. It says, It's a statutory framework designed to combat shareholder primacy. A certified B Corp is slightly different in that it is not a legal framework, but it may have legal implications, as oftentimes B Corp certifications require conversion to a public benefit corporation. So thank you for that comment.
Kevin
I
actually
like
had
to, yeah.
Oh,
just-
yeah, I think Ben was just going to say, Kevin should know what he's talking about in that he helped us to incorporate his firm, Rockridge Ventures, is, experts in that.
That's great. You know, I learn something new every day. So tell us about scaling. I mean, you know, you have, your mission is very socially driven, and you're actually taking part of your profits, to reinvest into the community. So it's not entirely shareholder driven. But in terms of scaling the business, right, you face the same types of problems that a fully for-profit corporation faces. You have to hire staff, you have to incentivize people, you may have an option plan for employees. Tell us a little bit about how, just on the people side of things, how do you recruit? How do you develop your employees? How do you scale the business on the people side?
Yeah, so in that sense, we operate with essentially the same type of options and equity-based incentives that a normal company would. And so, again, a PBC is a version of a C Corp, so we're operating in the similar manner there. And, one of the big things that we really, really believe in is building our people. People first is one of our core values. That comes both in terms of delivering value to the communities that we work in, and also really, really deeply investing in our team. So, that's something that we spend a lot of time on. We spend a lot of time doing, some more innovative ways of approaching that. We spend a lot of time on training. We spend a lot of time understanding ourselves and investing in our own emotional understanding and fulfillment as a way to really build in core team development and professional development. And something that we value a ton. So we are going into this next stage and really going to be scaling. We're raising around right now. Our team will probably double in size over the next year. And we're starting to see, growth within that. We're 6 full time, and we're really, really focused on getting that foundation right. So making sure we have really clear culture and making sure that we have the type of attention that is needed to go after a really big problem like this. Addressing climate change is always existentially heavy. It's easy to get tired. And so making sure that we are really building in the type of culture that is exciting, is fun, and also deals with the harder parts of that. Last thing I would say there too is we're seeing more and more this growing demand from employees and from people who want to be working to save the world. And so we really have a strong hiring advantage there. When we put out applications, we get applicants from everywhere. And we see lots and lots of folks who are really, really excited about joining. And that's something that we're really excited about continuing to leverage, and making sure that our employees are paid really well and, are part of this team that is really focused on their growth as well as the growth and impact of our communities.
Right. And where are you located? Do you plan to have more offices around the country?
We're based in DC, so that's kind of where our headquarters is right now. I think in the future, there's definitely consideration just in that we are working at a national scale and have seen in a very real way that being on the ground in the communities that we're serving and with the suppliers that we're working with is really important. So I think that is on the longer term horizon, but right now headquartered in DC.
How many employees right now?
There's 6 of us right now.
6. In 12 months, how many employees will you have?
Hopefully around 15.
15, okay. And what about 3 years from now? How many employees do you think you'll have?
55, exactly.
Exactly, okay, you got it.
It's all perfectly planned.
I see you already mapped out a detailed 3-year business plan. So if people dialing into this talk wanted to send in their resume, do they just send it to you, or do you have a HR department? How do you hire people? I mean, who does the interviewing? And I'm curious about that.
Yeah, So we do that as the co-founding team. I plan to interview, and I've talked to a number of other CEOs who really do this. I plan to interview everyone until I literally can't. So I was talking to a CEO the other day who interviewed his first 600 employees. I plan to do that, and our co-founding team will certainly be doing that for the first 100. Getting culture fit and getting that right is really, really important for us. And, the other part of that for us is we're a really purpose-driven organization, and we look for people who really have a strong why, because we believe that they are going to stick with us for a long time. And this is going to be a business that grows fast and has big ambitions. It's also going to take us a long time to really address this problem at scale. And so having folks who are going to be on board for a long time is really, really critical. If you're interested in reaching out or joining, you can check out our website. And I think Marissa just threw our emails in the chat as well. So feel free to ping us there.
That's great. What about fundraising? I mean, do venture capitalists and investors run away when they hear you donate part of your profits to reinvest back into the communities, or has it been a challenge?
We've seen really within, the venture community that folks see that as one, it's capital efficient. So like we were talking about in terms of, the financial structuring of it. And they also really understand how that fills a role of marketing, customer acquisition. And so some more of those business analytics sides of that spend, they see that as something that really scales. So we haven't gotten a ton of pushback at all from venture scale there. We are raising around right now and are in conversations with a number of different firms. I'd say the other exciting thing is we're seeing a lot more investment in folks who understand that you can really build at scale and do good. And so we're seeing a lot more capital in that space that's actively looking for companies like ours. So we're really excited about that. And I'm sure over the next 5 to 10 years, that's only going to continue to be more and more true.
So some of the investors may be curious, what is the metric that you would measure sort of scale? Is it the amount, the tonnage of the wood that you move, or the value of the wood, or the number of trees? So let's say in 3 years, what is that metric? What would that metric look like?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of core metrics for us. I mean, that's in board feet of material that are transacted. It's in carbon stored in wood products. So we provide carbon metrics for every purchase, looking at both the embodied carbon in that wood product, as well as what it reinvested in terms of new tree planting. And then for us, it is also that new tree planting component. So what are we ultimately able to grow from this process, and as this circular economy, what are we reinvesting back into tree canopies? So I think carbon impact is a big one for us, and it's also one for investors that are increasingly interested in their own portfolios and what impacts they're having.
So can you quantify the carbon impact? Let's say 3 years from now, what scale would you be operating at in terms of carbon impact?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think, we know that if all U.S. wood waste were recycled through a reforestation hub, that would be somewhere around 56 million metric tons of carbon annually just from wood product diversion and storage. And that's on top of additional carbon benefit from new tree planting. I think, we're a ways from that, but that would be our upper bound goal.
And I think, the core parts of that. So I think just to talk about scale for a second, we think that we can really be driving a gigaton solution between now and 2050 in terms of getting cumulatively to a gigaton, which is, really scaling what Marissa's saying. So leveraging the actual wood storage, also the avoided emissions is really key. So if you think about how far and how long wood product supply chains are for lots of furniture, if we're displacing that with one that traveled 4 miles around a city, that's something that is really, really high value. And then that carbon removal and storage within trees is huge. And just to go back to the scale of this problem, Weyerhaeuser, one of the biggest wood products companies in the country, they brought in 42 million tons of wood waste in 2020. the scale of the US urban wood problem was 46 million tons. So it's 32 million versus 46 million. So it's actually more volume there than one of the nation's largest wood products companies. So we really win and we really drive impact by connecting that resource to the market at scale. And so if we can do that and we can be the platform to do that, we're going to see huge impact and also huge business value.
Okay. I would like to leave some time for audience questions. We already got a number of questions coming in from this webinar from the audience. Claire, would it be okay if I started to ask I'm going to look at these questions and I'll ask, I'll just repeat those questions and Ben and Marissa can answer them.
Absolutely. That would be terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. One of the questions that came in is, are you using your product or carbon credits and carbon markets? Do you plan on expanding into voluntary carbon markets?
Yeah, so high level, I started this project while working on the carbon removal team at the World Resource Institute. One of our core advisors, Jamie Mulligan, is a real carbon expert. He now leads a lot of carbon work for Amazon. And one of the key things that we've talked about is the voluntary market is really unstable right now. And we see it as sort of an added benefit. It's a way for us to be more capital efficient as we start to grow and scale. We also don't want to pin our business model on those carbon benefits. So we see a lot of companies who are sort of pinning their entire financial success on the future of the carbon market. We want to make sure that we're tied into that upside, and Marissa can talk a little bit more about how we're getting ourselves set up for that. But we want to make sure that we have lots of other self-sustaining revenue that can scale without it. And if carbon becomes a really big play and we see higher price per ton there, then we're going to start to grow into that market as well.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add on to that we've done a little bit of work assessing potential carbon crediting projects on the tree planting and maintenance side, and also done some of that work for cities that we've worked with, specifically looking at that in our assessment with the city of Pittsburgh. But I think agree to Ben's point that both there is a lot of volatility right now and also some warranted skepticism in carbon markets. I also think that a lot of what makes carbon projects successful is scale, and for that you need to be in a rural environment. So we're looking at large-scale forest land for those types of projects. Traditionally, there's a growing number of city-based projects, but it's still pretty nascent on the urban side. And we are very committed to urban tree planting, just given the number of co-benefits that provides to communities. So whether that's heat vulnerability and disruption of urban heat island effect or stormwater management, air pollution mitigation, I think we've seen that there are so many co-benefits of trees in cities, and we don't want to get too tied up with rural restoration when there's a lot of impacts that we can do right outside our door.
Okay. So more questions from the audience. This one probably comes from someone who's a real estate developer or in the construction business. This question is, have any large developers, for example, Toll Brothers, various hotel chains, various malls, developers like Simon Properties, have they signed up to be part of your marketplace?
Yeah, so we are working with a number of those types of folks initially. If you're interested in working with us, please reach out. We would love to work with you. We're working with several national realty trusts, as well as these different types of entities that manage different properties and do a lot of development. Again, to start building into that. Right now, that really functions as a brokerage role where we help them access our supplier marketplace and really deliver that value to them in a way that we can prove the value of this product and we can show the scale. And so we're really excited and currently working with folks, as well as soliciting new offers, both from anybody who's interested in buying wood from and design perspective, from the development and real estate perspective, and also from the wood products perspective. We're working with national players in all three of those and are definitely looking for more. So if you're interested, please reach out.
Okay, and this same participant also asked a sort of a business direction question. I mean, once you're in a market, let's say you are handling, a majority of the city's the fallen trees and the wood. Do you expect to stay in the wood business, or do you want to expand into other parts of construction, let's say pipes and plumbing fixtures and things like that? Or do you think this is where you are is the sweet spot?
Yeah, I would say on that one. So we really see urban wood as, again, taking us to the scale, and the value there that's being missed is in the billions. It's not in the millions. So there's real scale here to be reached. So we are very focused on doing that first and getting that right. As we start to scale, we're already getting requests from some of our partners and buyers to do other products, like also metal and some other different derivatives. So we will actively be being aware of those opportunities. We are also making sure that we have the resources to really win on one material before we expand into others, but we do plan to longer term.
Yeah. Okay, we have another question really about the two-sided marketplace with suppliers and demand. I think you've covered quite a bit about how your marketplace works and who are the different actors in that marketplace. And I guess the question, the crux of the question is, when you have a supply side and a demand side marketplace, where do you start? You need something to jumpstart the marketplace. What's the more challenging side? Is it supply or is it the demand, and how that worked?
Yeah,
For sure.
I think I think I would say probably the demand side at the outset, in that, I think Ben touched on this before, but just the access to material on the supply side is not the constraint. We talked to millers who are sitting on wood that they've milled decades ago, and just are having trouble selling and connecting that to the market. So I think, building those market offtake channels for an industry and a community of businesses that have not historically done a ton of marketing and sales and outreach, that's probably our biggest opportunity in the short term. But then also there are certainly efficiencies to be made on the supply side. And as Ben was talking about earlier, just unlocking that kind of recurring order so that we can really scale up on the intake side is going to be big. But I think what ultimately opens all those doors is having deals come in and being able to scale up around them.
Yeah, the other thing I would say there too is, you really do need both to grow in tandem, right? If you look at like an Uber, it's hard to be a customer on there if there aren't enough drivers, and you don't want to be a driver on the platform unless there's enough customers. And the same thing for us. And the way we sort of get around that is by focusing regionally. So when we're playing a more active role in this brokerage, as Marissa's saying, we're helping bring in that demand, which helps get suppliers on our platform, which then we can move into more of a traditional marketplace transaction-based model. And we're going to focus on that in really a regional context, both for the climate impact and then also for the networks that enable that to scale. So that's how we're really trying to think about getting around that.
Okay. We have about 5 minutes left, but questions keep pouring in. So I'm going to quickly go through the questions, and if you could be brief with your answer, that would be great. So the next question: what type of policy or legislation would be most helpful in facilitating the circular economy?
Marissa?
I think I would say starting with a city sorting yard. So having a consolidated place where wood waste is being collected by the city. We've seen that in Baltimore with the Baltimore Wood Project. It's a kind of first of its kind city model. So I think really starting with aggregating a waste stream on a citywide scale just opens up many more doors to then process and make use of that material.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and next question. Do you think Nature Conservancy or the Sierra Club will ever invest in you? I don't even know if they make investments. They
do. Nature Conservancy is an impact investment firm. We've talked to them and we will see. I think there's a lot of different social organizations that have that type of capital. And so we're in the process of engaging with them. Okay, that's great. So they do invest in companies. They do.
other than just buy land?
They do. Yeah.
I believe NatureVest is the
Yeah.
term.
I will have to apologize. There are some questions that come in that are just a little bit too granular. Maybe they're better off asking you guys offline on, margins and, things like that. Let me just repeat one of the audience question as the final question where we can wrap up the session. The question is, what do you think are the best things early stage founders should spend time on? I've been an early stage founder, and do you spend time on the business itself, your customers, your employees? What is the best use of your time right now?
Yeah, I would say it's really, really critical at the early stage to make sure you're understanding and solving a real problem. And so that, to me, one of our core values is really listen first. So we spent a ton of time really listening to suppliers, to cities, to buyers. And I think that has really enabled us to figure out how to fit within this complicated market that we're really trying to thread the needle on. And so I think that is really, really critical. And then I think the second thing for me is people, get people right. For me, having two amazing co-founders who we can go and, we play soccer with together, and we can have a lot of fun while we do this, it's amazing. And that type of connection gives you the energy to push through the bad times and gives you people to celebrate when things go well. So I think those are two really critical things. And get people around you who are smarter than you, who can help see your gaps and who operate differently. It's one of the best things that, Marissa and I do together is she thinks very differently than I do. And that helps us, see our gaps in a much better way.
Marissa?
Yeah, I would agree
Yes.
with that. I think people is probably the biggest one in my mind, in that you've got to have your own house in order before you can go out and try to impact the world. So I think for us, we are really intentional, and as a co-founding team and as a core team of 6 now, of really making time and space for each other. And I think you want to build the team that you're going to be in the trenches with, and do that well.
That's great. So now I know if I want to submit a resume, I have to put soccer player on the resume, right? I'm able to contribute to your soccer team. That'll give me a better chance of being hired.
A big part of the criteria.
Especially for you, Joe. I don't know if you have the background that would quite need it. You would need to see the soccer player. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Maybe put me in the goal, or I'll play goalie. I don't know. Well, Ben, Marissa, it's been a pleasure. It's so great to have had this conversation with you. I've learned so much, and I'm sure the audience has benefited tremendously from this chat. It's such an interesting business. I love to follow up with you to learn more. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe, and thank you, Claire and SciCity, for having us. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you all for coming. And please reach out if you have any questions or are interested in partnering. We're definitely excited about it.
Thank you so much, Joe, Ben, and Marissa. This was terrific. I love that last question. It was actually the perfect question to end on, and very inspiring and good advice for current student innovators working with us here in SciCity today. So thank you very much. Just to remind our audience, this is the first in a series of spotlights on innovation pathways. This was a Civic Innovator Spotlight with Joe Tsai and Cambium Carbon. The next one will be on October 26th, and that will be an Entrepreneurship Spotlight, again with Joe Tsai, we're delighted to say, and with the founders of SnackPass. So thank you everyone for joining. Look up Cambium Carbon online and definitely reach out. You have the contact info in the chat. Thank you for joining us, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.